Hello, hello, what's going on? This is Coach Wilson. Uh, those of you who are watching this have known me. For those of you who know me, you know what I do. For those of you who don't, let me introduce myself. I am going to be the Michigan Chess Association social media head of the social media department. Also, I'm going to be doing something with the website as well, trying to update it and get further our technology as far as Michigan chess here. Now this video, I'm going to make a video hopefully that can help the kids that will be playing in this week's K-6 and K-3 state championship that Michigan Chess Association is hosting. The biggest thing I see with our lower rated players is the lack of taking advantage of a development league, because a lot of times lower rated players, they develop selectively. They don't develop the correct way, but also if they're playing someone else that's lower rated, they don't get punished for making those development mistakes. And I'm going to show you an example of taking advantage of development. It's a little higher level game, of course, but it even happens on the highest levels. But let me just give you two rules when you're up in development. Now, first of all, what is development? Development is moving your knights and bishops off of the back rank and castling. Okay. Also, the rooks go to open files. That could be a part of development, even though personally I put that in another category, but that can also be a part of development. So we want to get our bishops and knights off of the back rank. We usually don't want to move a piece more than once. Usually there are some exceptions, and we don't want to move a piece more than once in the opening, and we want to castle as soon as possible. Usually, especially at the lower level, you should castle as soon as possible. Now, if your opponent haven't done these things, haven't castled as soon as possible, and you have castled, or you have more pieces developed than your opponent, then there's two rules. First rule is attack. Be aggressive. If you have more pieces out, don't hesitate. Go at them. The second rule, if the other person's king is in the center, you want to open the center files. You want to blast those center pawns out of the way so you can get to the king before the king reaches safety. Sometimes that requires you to sacrifice a pawn. You might even have to sacrifice a piece in this sort of attack. And it'll be worth it to keep that king in the center. At the very worst, you can have a perpetual check for a draw. And you're going to make them suffer for a long time when they have their king in the center where it's most vulnerable. All right. Now let's get to our example game. This game was, I found this game a while ago. This game was played in the European Youth Championship in 2017 in a place called Mamaia. And the white pieces, a guy named Leon Levaik, was facing with the black pieces Rafael Luganow. Now, Rafael Luganow has a FIDE rating of 2,357, and Levaik has a rating of 2,461. So let's get into the game. All right, first move here is D4. Controls the center of the board. Is a good move to start off with. He responds with D5, also fighting for space. C4, this is called a Queen's Gambit. This is a space opening. Want to control more of the center, as much as you center as you can with the white pieces. He defends his center with C6. Knight F3, Knight F6, Knight C3, and E6 here. All right. So this is just regular play. You see black is 2 moves away from castling. And white actually is 1, 2, 3 moves away from castling. So that's very important here. Now, if you look at the next move, bishop to g5 was played by white. So look at white's pieces. Even though white's king is in the center, white still has more pieces out than the opponent. He has 1, 2, 3 pieces developed, and black has the 1 because black spent time moving 2 pawns. Here, black moves another pawn in the opening by taking material. Now here, this is what we mean by being aggressive, especially on the top level. White invested a pawn for development. So white sees that right now, white is down material, but white will be up in some other imbalances like development, which is what we call a dynamic imbalance. It doesn't last long. You have to use it before you lose it. So that means you must do something now to take advantage of your development lead. And he's also gaining space here, which is a static imbalance. It lasts a long time. Okay. And he's doing that all for the price of a pawn. Now, also, this pawn is actually weak. So if black wanted to defend the pawn, black might have to waste another move, which takes away from black's ability to castle. So black decides to be greedy and defend the pawn with b5. So here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pawn moves in the opening and 1 piece move here. Okay. So already we see what could happen to black when he's making all these pawn moves, but he is up a pawn. So as long as he can make it through the opening, a pawn is a pawn, and he's got to be better if he can make it through the opening, if he's able to keep that material. The next move white makes is a4. So now here white is actually threatening to win the pawn back. Now here we see that black has an option here. Black can play b4, and after b4, the knight is going to have to move away, maybe to a2, maybe to e2. But then the pawn on c4 is weak again, and you see this bishop on f1 is ready to develop and take the pawn on c4. Black's king will still be in the center. This knight is pinned, by the way, so the knight can't take the e4 pawn because the bishop will be able to take the queen on d8. So here black says, okay, he's seen that variation, and he unpins his queen, or the knight to the queen, and moves the queen away, but at the same time protecting the b5 pawn. All right. So here, white decides to damage the pawn structure, right? Even though white is down a pawn, he decides to damage the pawn structure by trading a bishop for a knight. And here, it doesn't look so safe for black to castle to this direction as much as it did before. And now white decides he's going to try to castle as soon as possible. He's not going to try to get the pawn back right now. He's going to try to castle as soon as possible and get to the king because the king is still in the center. So here we have bishop to b7. Maybe black maybe he's deciding he wants to castle to the queen side. That's possible. But he's going to have to, he needs 2 more moves to do this. Here, white castles, and then now knight d7, and black is 1 move away from getting castled. But that 1 move is a move that we can use to start being aggressive. So here, white takes the pawn on b5, black takes back. And here he attacks another pawn on c4. And now it doesn't look so safe castling to the queen side, especially when the king will be on the c file, and the c file is easily going to be opened up. And the b file is not so safe. So it seems like the safest place for the king right now might be in the center. But maybe black should have castled earlier. Maybe queen b6 was not the most accurate move. Maybe black, sometimes the best thing about having an extra pawn is being able to give it back. If you see that your opponent has many imbalances, what I mean by imbalance is something different on the board. Things that, like a development lead, like a spatial advantage, multiple things that's positive for white, it might be a good thing for you to give the pawn back. Okay. Here, this pawn on c4 is attacked twice. So here he defends it twice. White takes, and now we know that black won't be castling to the queen side. Black's king is still in the center, And we still want to be aggressive. So here, white attacks a piece of greater value. Queen moves to c7. And now when the king is in the center, remember the first rule was to be aggressive. Don't hesitate to attack. But the second rule, always remember the second rule when your opponent's king is in the center. Open the center. Remember this. Open the center. Those center pawns that are there, you want them gone. Yours and theirs. You want to trade those pawns off because it allows your army to penetrate into your opponent's side of the board. So trade those pawns, open the center. And here, Leviathan plays d5 because he wants to take on e6 to open the center. Bishop goes back to d7 and he opens the center, and now there is an open file on the d file as well as open file on the b file here. And he's steady being aggressive. Now the knight attacks the weak e6 pawn that's in front of the king. He defends the pawn with the king. King is not the best defender in the middle game, especially when there's queens on the board. So this is already a successful game for Leviathan right here, because the king moved to e7. King can't castle once the king has moved. And now we attack the pawn again, putting more pressure. Aggressive. Attack the weak points in your opponent's. Actually, you can really make it more simple. Look for those checks and look for attacking things more times than they are currently protected. That's initiative. Okay? And white has the initiative here, putting pressure on the e6 pawn. Here he plays f5. We're going to take that because we have 3 attackers on that pawn. And here he pushes. Next, white moves the knight away and attacks the piece of greater value, the queen. Queen moves away. Now, here we're threatening to take away the best piece that black has, is this bishop on a8. He trades. Now the queen comes in. a6 attacks a piece of greater value, but we are attacking a greater value piece, which is the queen. And the pressure was so bad for black. Black decides to give up the queen for the knight here. So queen takes knight, rook takes. You get the rook and knight for the queen. And maybe he's feeling that he has these 2 passed pawns, and maybe he thinks that he can promote these passed pawns later in the game. But it is too much here. We have rook to d1 taking over the file here. I'm threatening to go knight d6, putting the knight on the outpost or weak square or support point, all the same things. Bishop goes to g7. And here's a check. Are there any checks? Yes. King goes back to d8, and remember this weak square. Knight d6 attacks a piece of greater value. Now he pins the knight to the queen, but luckily for us, we asked, are there any checks? Yes, we have a check here. King has to step, or the rook he has to block with the rook, or he's going to lose the rook actually. So, and the next move we play is knight f7, forking the rook and the king. And here, black resigns here with his king in the center. So for those of you kids who will be playing at the state championship, for also anyone that's watching this video future, remember that development is something that you're guaranteed to get, especially if you have white pieces. You're guaranteed to get development or space. Development is something that you have to use it or lose it. If you have a development lead, you have to do something aggressive while you have it, or it will go away. Your opponent will eventually get the king castle. Your opponent will eventually get all the pieces out. So if you have more pieces out than your opponent, don't hesitate to attack. If the other person's king is in the center, open the center, get to the king. Basically, be aggressive. All right, so good luck in your state championship coming up this weekend, and also in all future chess games you have, winning games with development. Peace.